So today in this video, I would like to take a look at variables and a little bit about variables, strings. We're going to look at strings, not in depth, of course, but just to give a basic overview of what they are and how to use them. We'll also look at the data types, the four main data types, and just kind of work through them and understand how they work and what they're used for in Python. Okay, so first let's work with and how to define a variable. So let's say, for example, maybe we create a variable called a and we set it equal to 5. So that's a simple variable in this case. And if we go ahead and print a, you will see that we get 6 in the interpreter. Okay, and so in this case scenario right here, we are actually printing or storing a value of type integer inside of this variable. So we can check this and verify this by doing type, oops, type, and then we pass in a, and this should give us the result, class int. So you can use the type keyword to figure out what data type and variable is storing. So that is always very helpful. But we have other data types as well. So let me go in and give you a list of them down here. So of course we have int, and we also have float. Now float is like for smaller numbers, really small numbers, so point, whatever. Basically, that's a float. So if you print this right here, this is storing type float instead of type integer. Okay, and then we also have, what else do we have? We have type string, and then the last one we have, I believe, is bool. Okay, and this one is basically a true or false value. And let me just clear that up right there. And I'm gonna put that as a comment, or oh yes, I'm thinking Java here, but that's not how we get a comma here. How we make a comma is just simply hashtag right in front of the line that you want to comment out, and that makes a comment. So true and false, those are Boolean values. Okay, so those are the four main data types. There are more, for example, but just in this case, in this video, we'll just be looking at these four main data types. Okay, so now let's say, for example, we wanted to, let's say, add this number to another variable. So we could do that easily. We'll be looking at the operators. But first, let's go in and list the operators. So we have plus, we have this, we have minus, and we have division, okay? So this is obviously addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, okay? So we can use these operators rather, to basically do our operations in Python. So let's say, for example, we wanted to add maybe 5 to this value right here. It is very important to understand that we have to, basically it's like updating and changing what we're going to have inside of that value. So we're going to put a is equal to, maybe we're going to say a, so a is equal to this, okay? So if we do it like this, we will get the same value. But if we do plus 5, then we're going to get whatever a is plus 5, okay? Now, we could do it like this if we wanted to write like this, and we would just get 5. But in this case, I actually want to say a plus 5 is equal to 5. And we can go ahead and print out a, and you'll see that we're actually going to get roughly about 11 point something here. Yes. So here we go. You can see we got 11 and a really long float value. Okay. But let's say, for example, we did not want this value in float. Is there a way to convert this when we are doing it here? Well, right here, if we want to maybe for example, get this in string value. We don't really care too much about this value right here, maybe. What can we do with that? Well, there's always the option of casting. We have int, and I'm just showing you a couple things we can do. We can cast this to an integer. And so an integer will automatically cut off this value right here, the decimal values here, and just leave the remaining integer value. Okay, so if we go ahead and print that, you will see that we do not have that. We just have 11. And so it also goes somewhat the other way around, but you will have just a 0 at the end for an integer because an integer does not store any smaller values. It just after it's been chopped off, it can't be added again. So let me give you an example of what I mean. Okay, so let's say I'm going to make a value b is equal to 6, okay? And so now if I wanted to convert b to, well, first let me print this out. Actually, let me print out b just to make sure that you understand. Okay, so there's b, and b is just 6 right there. Okay, so now let's say, oops, let's not type into the interpreter. Let's say now that we wanted to convert this to a float value. We can do that simply by doing b is equal to float parentheses b. And if we go ahead and print this out on the screen again, we're just going to get b. We're just going to get b, but with a 0 at the end. Okay, so you can see right here, instead of getting just 6, we actually get that right there. And it's a little bit different of a value. So far, we've only looked at really numeric values. We really haven't looked at any text as of yet. And there's two other data types we haven't looked at, which is bool and string. And I believe we're going to go to string next. String, I believe, is the next most important value. So I will look at that, and then we'll come back and maybe work a little bit more with the operators. And we can also work with the operators in string as well, believe it or not. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's store a value. Maybe we create a variable c. And to create a string is basically two parentheses, or not two quotation marks, two double quotation marks, or two single quotation marks, okay? Whichever, it really does not matter in this case as of yet, but when you're getting very technical, maybe you need to use both. In one case, you have to use one first, one just depends on the circumstances. But for the beginners basics, you can just decide whichever one you want to use. Okay, so maybe we type in my name. So I'm going to write in my name. Jeez, okay, so this is storing text, and if I print this out on the screen, you're going to see that now I get my name. Okay, and let's clean up some of this. I mean, we have quite a few print statements. Let's just clean some of it up, just to make it cleaner. Okay, there we go. And so now we have this cleaner. And let's say, for example, we wanted maybe to just print out my name. Okay, now we have my name, just my first name. But let's say we wanted to add my second name to it. Well, we can simply do that by doing c is equal to c plus, this is very important, we're going to put a space right there, ts. Okay, so we put a space right there so that we leave space in between, otherwise it'll just smush it right up to my name, which is not really what I want. So if I put this right on there, you can notice I still get my name, although I took it off of here, So I'm adding it here, and if I get rid of this right here, let me just comment that out. Now there are a few more operations I would like to share. Another operator I want to share is the len key. Okay, very helpful. And we use this mainly to determine how long a string is or how many characters are in a string. So let me give you an example of this. So let's say, for example, let's print this out. Let's print out len parentheses. We're going to do c. Okay, I believe this only works for string values. So if we print this out right here, we get 13, I believe. and that is correct because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, and you have to count that empty space, which is 13. So there are indeed 13 values in there. But however, if we comment this out, you'll notice we're just going to get 7, I believe. Yes, we just get 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is very important to understand. The len function can be very helpful in many cases. Another thing I want to teach you is about the index. Okay, so the index of variables are very important. So let's say this is mainly in variables, though, and in this case in variables, not in like floating values. You can't get an index of a floating value, I believe, but rather let's work with that with a string. So let's say, for example, we just want to print out the letter D, or maybe just the letter B. Let's try with that one for now. Okay, so how can we do that? So we can actually go print, and we're going to go C, and we're going to put brackets at the end, and we're going to put 0. Now, first, I'm just going to print this at the end, we print this at the beginning, and then I'll explain how this works. So as you can see, we get B, and now what we want to do is I want to first explain how this works. So what you need to know is that indexes always start as 0. So with B, it's 0, R is 1, A is 2, N is 3, D is 4, O is 5, and N is 6. Okay, that's the index right here. So what you can do to, let's say, to always get the last value, I'll explain this, to always get the last value of the integer of the value in the string is to just go len minus 1, which will always equal the last index of the string, or the last index value of the string, sorry. So let me give you an example here. So maybe we don't know how long this string is in this situation, so we go ahead and print C, and then we're going to do that, and then len. We can use the len function. And what we're going to do is we're going to do len C, and then we're going to come out here minus 1. Okay, this will always grab us the ending value of the variable. So as you can see, and give me a second. Oh, it's very important to understand I uncommented this right here. Except for a second, I was seeing S and I was expecting N, but we uncommented this right here, which means we get that back. So if you put that there, we get N because the last value is there. So this automatically updates it because the length is longer when you have this on there, and thus it's going to print the S. Okay, it's always going to grab the last value in this string. So let's go ahead and erase some of this, and we can also work with slices as well. Let's work one more thing with slices. So let me explain slices. Slices is similar, but a little bit different. Let's say you want to grab multiple values. So we go ahead and go C, and what we want to do is we want to do maybe that, and we'll do that. So let's see what we get. Okay, so you notice we get these 3 right here. So in this case, we get 0, 1, oops, and let's just undo that. 0, 1, 2, but we don't get 3. So we're not counting the value 3. So 0, 1, 2. Okay, and if I put 0 in here, I believe it will chop off. Nope, it didn't chop off. Actually, let's try 1. Yes, then it chopped off the B. So this is only allowing me to get these 2 values right here. This is what we call a slice. So we just want a small portion of the string, and we can get that by using this right here, this value right here. And it's just a simple operation which you probably should understand and know and keep note of. Okay. So right now we've learned already that we how to add stuff to the end of a string, and we also can use multiplication in strings as well. So for example, let's say we wanted to make this say my name 5 times in a row. So we actually could say this 5 times. Oops, and I kind of messed that up. So we go 5 times that, and you will notice that we're going to have this 5 times in this example. Oh, and we need to go in and print this out. Let's print this out. Let's print C out. And there you go. We notice we have that right there. So we multiply this times this over and over again. This is getting multiplied. This right here is getting multiplied by 5. Okay, and that's how we get this value right here. And then at the end, this is added right here. So like we probably can understand, adding and subtracting variables would be rather simple. So if we make a variable named d now is equal to, let's say, 12 divided by 4. This is just division, normal division. So we're just going to print. Everybody pretty much knows what this is going to print, d, but I want to go in and print this anyway and just make sure that I cover it fully. So we get 3, and that's the value we expect. We can also do something with multiplication. So let's do e is equal to, I don't know, maybe 3 times 8 or 7, sorry, and we should get 20. Well, we didn't even print it. There we go. And you can see we get 21. So it's very important to understand that we can also use this value right here, d. Let's say, for example, we wanted to use this d value for what we are going to have inside of here. So maybe we decide, okay, well, let's use this one instead of, let's use d instead of 7. So you can see that we're going to get this right here. Or yes, we're going to get 21, same value. But you notice that this right here is of decimal value in, or floating point value. This is because when you divide, I believe that's kind of default thing what happens. Okay, so that now that we've learned kind of a basic of variables and floating point numbers, there's and integers and strings. We still haven't looked at booleans yet. Booleans are pretty simple, but I'll touch on those at the very end. I still have one more thing I want to talk about real quick. And that main thing is converting different values to each other. Like I showed how you could cast a float value to an integer value, or an integer value to floating value. But we can also do that from float to string, or string to float, and back. Okay, but there are a few limitations to that. So let's say, for example, let's say we have a value. Let's call it val, and let's clean this up actually first. So we don't need all this code right here. So let's just clean all this up. There we go. Cleaned all this up. So we can have val is equal to, I don't know, what's a good number? Let's just do 120. Okay, there we have 120, great. But now let's say we want this to be a string or a text value. So text value won't be treated as a number, so it's not going to be like added or anything. It's going to be added like a string was, like when you saw how I added my name right down here and multiplied it right down here. It's going to be treated as text and not as a numeric value. So if we go ahead and cast it and type in val here, there we go. And as you're going to see, we get the same thing, just it's now in string value instead of in a numeric value. And you can't see that from here, but that is the case. And so we can actually verify this if you want by doing type, and then we're going to do val. Okay. And you can see it's class string. Okay, so that worked successfully. We were able to obtain or convert this here to a value. Now let's say, for example, we want to convert this back. We can simply do that by doing val is equal to int dash val, and that will convert it back. But first, let's actually do a little bit of an experiment. Well, let's actually just push this down. Okay, so now we have a little bit of space here. And let's say, for example, we wanted to try to add a value to it. So val is equal to val plus maybe 50. Okay, we want to add 50 to this. Well, look, we have an error here. And as you notice, we do not have this right here. This is a numeric value. This is not a text value. So it cannot basically, it says type arrow cannot concatenate string, not int to string. So basically, in this case, we have two types. We have two value types. We have a string we're dealing with, which value is string. And then we also have a numeric value, integer, which is 50 that we're trying to add to this. And we can't add two different data types. So we have to try to convert one to the other. So let's say, for example, we put 50 in right here in quotation marks. Well, then, as if you look at this, we don't get anything because we haven't printed this out. Now let's go and print it out. And let's go and print out. There we go. And as you can see right here, we get, and as you can see, we get about 12,050. So that's how we get that. And that's basically just adding this to the end. So we're just putting this to the end. And logically, if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to add this to the front, we could also do that as well. So let's maybe do 50, and then we're do plus, and there you go. And so then it's just going to add it to the front. And so that's pretty simple, straightforward to understand. But now let's say, for example, if we wanted to have a text value. Okay, so let's say we have value is equal to, and let's do that. And so now let's say we wanted this to be a numeric value. So value, we're going to cast this to int and value. Now we get an error here with not even having to print this out. And basically, it's understandable that this right here cannot be converted to an integer value. This has no integer value. These are letters, so they cannot be converted. But, for example, if you were to try this value right here, val, which we do down here in this case, and we can also like prove this by doing val is equal to val plus, I don't know, 6 will do, or let's do 10 just to make it fair. And we're going to go ahead and print this beforehand. Let's print val beforehand. Okay, val, there we go. And then we'll print it after so you fully understand. Okay, and you're going to see that we were able to successfully add this to it. And we have to kind of get rid of this error right here for now, so this runs like it's supposed to. So you notice this right here. So let me walk through exactly what happens here. So here we have up here the variable val. We cast it to string. We print out the value. We put the type. We print out the type. We add 50 in string value that's how we get the 50 right here, the 50 in front of 120, okay? And then we have this value stuff right here, that's fine. And we'll print out val right here, which is what that printout is here. Then we go ahead and cast it back to an integer value. We print it out again, okay? And then finally, after that, we add 10 to this value. Since it's back into numeric value, it's going to add it back and just add 10 to it and not just concatenate it and put 10 at the end like it would when we were doing text in this case right here, okay, because it's in a numeric value. Okay, then we just simply print out value. So there are two more things I would like to show you, and that is first getting input from the user. This is a little bit more advanced, but I want to go ahead and work with this. So because I have an exercise for you guys that you can work with today. So let's go ahead and look at this, how this works. Okay, so to get input, we simply need to define a variable. So let's go ahead and call user. And again, we're going to clean this up since we do not need these values. User is equal to input, input, and then I'm going to type maybe enter your name. Okay, and there we go. So then what this is going to do here is if we run this program, we are prompted to enter our name. So I'm going to enter my name. There we go. And you notice nothing happens really after we enter the name because we did nothing else. But let's say, for example, we wanted to print user. Okay, now if we enter our name, we get our name back and print it because this value right here is going to store whatever the user types in. Okay, so that's very important to understand. So if we wanted to get a little bit more technical, we could do something like this. We could do hi, and then we could jump out of this right here, plus user plus how how are you today? There. Okay. And if we print this out, we get hi Brandon, how are you today? And this will change based on the name right here. So that's very important to understand. So this is one way how we get you this input. So that's very important to understand. The last thing I want to show you is replace. I will come back to this in a minute about one more thing. We have to cover one more thing, and then I have to get to Booleans as well. Okay, so then we have the replace value. So the replace value allows you to obtain a value inside of the string and change it, okay? Alter it. So let's create a value. Maybe we create a value a is equal to, let's call this maybe apple in this case, okay? There we go. And then we can do a dot replace, and we first type, in this case, the value we want to replace. So let's do a, okay? And then the value we want to replace it with. So let's do, maybe we want to be uppercase a because we don't like it lowercase, okay? So then we do it uppercase. So then we're going to print this out, and let's do a. So now, to be honest with you, I don't know if this is going to work. Give me a second. I think we may have to, yeah, so we have to actually store this right here inside of a, like that, to make it work properly. So yes, and you can see right here, this updated it, so we have to go a is equal to a replace, and that right there. So that will produce the desired result, apple. Now it's very important to understand, for example, let's say we wanted to just replace p. Well, we would replace both of these. So if you actually look at this, we actually get a weird string. So you see, we replace both P's with double A's. Okay? And that's how that works. Now the final thing is Booleans, and Booleans are pretty simple, but I'll go over them real quick. We mainly use them to determine mainly if something is true, obviously, or false. So we could say, and we'll learn about more Booleans and how they're helpful later on, but they're very, at the beginning when you're not learning maybe anything like if statements, they may not be too helpful. But let's say, for example, if we have a maybe true, we'll call this true dash false, and we're going to set that equal to, I don't know, true. So this is pretty easy. If you print this out, you're going to notice that we're going to get true in this case. And I'm getting kind of tired of adding these values, so we're just going to comment that out for right now at the moment. So you notice we get true. And again, we can update this. True false is equal to maybe false. If we wanted to update this to false, we could update this to false. And we can also update this to none. Again, we can update any value we want like this to none. We can even change the variable, the value type. For example, this is string. We could just go ahead and update this to none if we wanted to. So if we wanted to come to do a is equal to none, instead of being now this value right here, it would actually just be none. So we can print this out and I'll show you how that works. So first I want to go ahead and print out print true, false, print true, false, and one more. Oops. Print true, false. There we go. And so now, if we print out this one right here, we're just going to get A, we're just going to get none in this case. So if we run all that, you can notice we just get a bunch of nuns right down here because this one's none, that one's none, and this one's none too. Okay, all of these in this case are none, so don't actually really need this one right down here. So as you can see, we can just simply update one, and this we will learn more about the false, true, and false statement later on in other videos, future videos. But for now, just know they're true and false Boolean values. So, and you can add them, or you can not add them, but update them, and depending on the circumstances of the program and when it's running. Okay, so here's a project for you. I want you to create a program that prompts the user for their name and then their age. Switch the first letter of the user's name with the last letter of their name. So just take it and switch it, okay, using replace, but leave the last letter the same, okay? Leave the last letter the same. It needs to stay the same, but make sure to take the first letter and change it to the last letter, okay? So basically you have the last letter also, the the you have the last letter being also the first letter now. Okay, the program should result in the first letter being changed to the last letter in the string. Also, any other letters that are the same as the first one will be changed. Okay, two will be changed too. So, for example, if you have a name that has the first letter and then has another letter, the same letter in the alphabet, the same letter, then it will be changed as well. Okay, after this, print a space onto the screen. The program should then respond by saying, "Hi, name, you are age years old." Try to write this program using only 9 lines of code, including spaces to make the code neat. So here's an example of what we will get. This is the output, what you should get. So enter your name. We put, for example, my name, Brandon. Enter your age, 18. It says hi, and as you see, this N is the last letter in my name, and it's brought up here, and B is swapped out with in. You are 18 years old. So this is the project that you have for this week. And in a minute, I will show you my solution. Just take a minute to try to solve this problem. Okay, so as you can see, I have input, enter your name, so we get the name here. And right here then, when it comes down over here, we go name.replace. And as you can see, we get the index of the first index is 0, and this grabs the first value of the list, or I'm sorry, rather the string. Okay, so it grabs the string. You'll be learning about lists later on in the course. And then we grab the last letter of the string. We do that by getting len minus 1. Len is the length of this of the integer, or of the string, sorry, and subtracts 1. If we do not subtract 1, we will get an error, so it's very crucial that we do subtract 1. Okay, and then we grab the age here. And it's important to understand that we cannot, like, add or subtract ages in this case. For example, if we wanted to minus 1 and it be, let's say, instead of 18 be 17, we would have to first convert this to an integer first. By default, we always get input from users as string. So you need to understand that when you're working with strings and when you're working with input from users. So if you want to get an integer, then you're going to need to go ahead and either wrap this in brackets, concatenate, going to wrap this in parentheses with something like this, which is okay in this case. You could do that, but in this case, it's not necessary, so we're not going to do that. So we're just going to take this off, okay? And we're going to print the print statement, like I said, told you to do. And this right here is not necessary. I put this in there. It was a little bit more complicated. We want to stay a little bit more basic right now. So as you can see, I do hi name. You are age years old. Okay, and so that is the project for this week, for this lesson. So that is today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like. If you learned something, comment below and tell me that you found this video helpful. And I will see you next time. Bye.